Alrighty, how is everyone doing today? And welcome to my channel. This channel is for educational purposes. We check out great theories and concepts and discoveries that would really benefit you if you only knew about them. But the powers that be have suppressed these things and are not telling you. And you have to do some digging, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. Some of these subjects are not the most easy to access, and they're not the most comfortable sometimes. They might shake up your belief systems, question some things that you held dear. And this is number 413 in our series of Bible decodes. And so we have been focusing on the New Testament. And what you see is not what you get. What you read might not exactly mean what you thought it did. And we've explored a lot about the Roman origins hypothesis, how the true authors of the New Testament were the Romans. The Romans wrote the New Testament as fiction, as a psychological operation against the Jews. Now, you may know, if you're a truther, you're a digger, you're an anon, that everything that you've uncovered in the 20th and 21st centuries has turned out to be a psyop. Not at all what it looks like. A false flag or an operation. Well, the same is true about ancient history. And the Romans created Christianity as a psychological operation against the Jews. The Jews had been a big pain in the side of the Romans for over a century, fighting constant uh, tension between the Romans and the Jews. Uh, the Jews saw themselves as the chosen people, but that didn't mesh well with the Roman occupation of their land. And so the Jews were willing to die for their belief systems, their rituals, and their traditions. And the Romans were relatively tolerant of their rituals and traditions, but the Romans wanted you to also give a nod to Caesar's religion, and the Jews were not willing to do that. The Romans also couldn't understand a lot of the aspects of the Jews' religion, their uh, kosher food laws and their circumcisions and their, um, you know, their cleanliness, um, you know, uh, stuff that's in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Um, and so there was just constant conflict, uprisings, insurrections, revolts, culminating in the revolt of 66 AD, which turned into a 7-year long war that the Romans had to put down under General Vespasian. Eventually, General Vespasian becomes Emperor Vespasian, and he, along with his son Titus, who eventually becomes emperor as well, um, decided that they were going to, you know, uh, not have another 7-year long war against the Jews, but instead to enact a psychological operation to get them to mellow out, to tame them or domesticate them, to get them with the program of the Romans. And so they created a story about a Jewish Messiah who was a prince of peace and believed in rendering unto Caesar and believed in walking the extra mile and in turning the other cheek. Unlike the Jewish messiahs who were spoken of and foretold, prophesied in the Old Testament books of a Jewish Messiah who was a military leader, who was going to deliver the Jews from the occupying power. That's what the Romans wanted to move away from. And so they moved to this gentle Jesus who was into turning the other cheek. And that any time that Jesus did get cheeky, did, rise up, he rose up against the Jews, not against the Romans. When he overturned the tables of the Jewish money changers, and he castigated the Jewish merchants selling small animals at the temple. And then Paul is more of the same, uh, even more deferential to the Romans and even more critical of the Jews. So this is exactly what a Roman psyop would look like. And it is exactly what the Romans would do and did do, because the Romans created a number of other religions as well during the first century. Um, and they were masters of psychological warfare. Now, when they wrote the New Testament, they wrote it as a limited hangout, meaning that they had to put a lot of good stuff in there, a lot of religious, spiritual, uplifting material to make it look like a religion. They can't just put a bunch of poison in there. They have to put some stuff that you're gonna be inspired by. And so they used many different sources. Ancient Egyptian philosophy and religion, mythology, ancient Greek and Roman, Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Persian, and also mystery schools, Stoicism from the ancient Greeks, um, numerology, astrology, shamanism, magic. All of it is in there. And I think it was kind of a team of intellectuals working for the Romans that kind of put it all together. And they more or less wrote under the name of Josephus. Um, Josephus wrote a history of this war, 7-year long war called War of the Jews. And that is really used as a template or uh, I won't say model, but a structure uh, for the Gospels. The Gospels were um, written in tandem with Josephus's War of the Jews, and particularly the Book of Luke. The amount of parallels and coincidences and themes in similar themes and jokes and uh, satires between the two are overwhelming and obvious once you know what to look for. So I would recommend that you don't listen to me, but instead you get yourself a copy of Josephus and see for yourself. Compare it with the book of Luke and see what you come up with. Start with book 3 at the beginning of General Titus's military campaign, and start with the beginning of his ministry, and compare the two and see what you come up with. Now, all of the sources that the Romans used to put together the Gospels Many of them are discussed here in this book from Kersey Graves that is called 16 Crucified Saviors Before Christianity, which he wrote way back in 1876. And we are in chapter 32 of that book, which is about the 346 similarities between Christ and Krishna. Krishna being the ancient Messiah slash um, savior of the ancient Indians from about 1200 BC. So much before the time of Jesus, meaning that, the story of Jesus got its, you know, got its source. One of its sources is Krishna. And we're about to start the section 4 here, the second advent of Krishna. Then this is a quote. I don't know where it's from. There is not a Hindu or a Brahmin who does not look upon the second coming of Krishna as an established article of faith. Their holy Bibles, the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita, prophesy of him thus, quote, "He shall come crowned with lights. He shall come, and the heavens and the earth shall be joyous. The stars shall pale before his splendor. The earth will be too small to contain him, for he is infinite. He is almighty. He is wisdom. He is beauty. He is all and in all. And all men, all animated beings, beasts, birds, trees, and plants will chant his praises. He will regenerate all bodies and purify all souls. He will be as sweet as honey and ambrosia, and as pure as the lamb without spot, or as the lips of a virgin. All hearts will be transported with joy. From the rising to the setting of the sun, it will be a day of joy and exultation, when this God shall manifest his power and his glory, and reconcile the world unto himself." Such are a few of the prophetic utterances of his devout and prayerful disciples. We find, says a writer, in all the theogonies of different countries, the hope of the advent of a God, either his first or second coming, a hope which springs from a sense of their own imperfections and sufferings, which naturally induce them to look for a divine Redeemer. Okay, now this section is called Precepts of Krishna. Numerous are the prescriptive admonitions found in the holy books which set forth the religion of this heathen demigod. They appertain to all the duties of life, but are too numerous to be quoted here. Those appertaining to woman enjoin the most sacred regard for her rights, such as woman should be protected with tenderness and shielded with fostering solicitude. There is no crime more odious than to persecute woman or take advantage of her weakness. Degrade woman, and you degrade man. For other similar precepts, um, will be coming in. It says see chapter 32. I'm pretty sure we're on chapter 32. So the injunctions to read their holy Bible, the Vedas and Bhagavad Gita, are quite numerous, such as, let him study the holy scriptures unceasingly, pray night and morning, and read the holy scriptures in the attitude of devotion. And many of them read it through upon their knees. We have not space for a further exposition of this subject here, but it will be found more fully set forth in the pamphlet Christ and Krishna Compared. I think he's already chop this subject up all over the place. This chapter has gone on forever. So, um, not sure where he's getting at here. I can't imagine that there's going to be anything more in that pamphlet than what we've already covered here. But in the pamphlet Christ and Krishna Compared, which will perhaps become an appendix to this work, it may be objected that there are precepts and stories to be found in the religion of this Hindu god, Krishna, which reflect but little credit or honor upon that religion. This is true, and similar reflections would materially damage the religion of Christianity also. The story of Christ beating and maltreating the money changers in the temple, his cursing an innocent, unoffending, and unconscious fig tree, and his indulgence in profane swearing at his enemies. O ye fools and blind, ye generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? Does not reflect any credit upon his religion viewed as a system. Defects, then, may be found in both systems. In viewing the analogies of the two religions, it should be noted that the Hindus claim, with a forcible show of facts and logic, that the religion of Christianity grew out of theirs. It has not been long since a learned Hindu maintained this position in a public debate with a missionary. If all these facts affect nothing in the way of inducing the Christian clergy to confess the falsity of their position in claiming their religion to be a direct emanation from God, it will be a sad commentary upon either their intelligence or their honesty. These historical facts, with those set forth in the preceding chapters, prove that the religion called Christianity, instead of being, as Christians claim, the product of the divine mind, is the product of heathen minds, spontaneous outgrowth of the moral and religious elements of the human mind. And therefore, for God to have revealed it over again to the founders of Christianity would have been superfluous and a proof of his ignorance of history. Now, there's a note here. Let's see. We'll see if we want to get into this or not. I'll start it. See what happens. Note, the author deems it proper to state here, with respect to the comparison between Christ and Krishna, that some of the doctrines which he has selected as constituting a part of the religion of the Hindu savior are not found in the reported teachings of that deified moralist, but as they appear to breathe forth the same spirit, it is presumed he would have endorsed them had they come under his notice. As Christians assume the liberty to arrange the doctrines of Paul and Peter under the head of Christianity because claimed to be in consonance with the religion of Christ, though not all taught by him, the author, in like manner, has assumed that some doctrines taught by other systems and religious teachers of India accord with those taught by Krishna, and hence has arranged them with his. The author's purpose is not to set forth the doctrines of any sect, any system, or any religious teacher, but to show that all the doctrines of Christianity are traceable to ancient India. But whether taught by this sect or that sect, it is foreign to our purpose to inquire, and hence, for convenience, he has arranged them all into one system and designated them Krishnaanity. There can be no more impropriety he presumes, in arranging the doctrines of the various conflicting sets of India into one system than to arrange, as Christians do, the doctrines taught by the antagonistic systems of Catholicism and Protestantism and their 600 conflicting sects under the head of Christianity. Hence, Christians, of course, will not fault the arrangement. The classification above alluded to comprises in part the religion of many of the Hindu sects, but does not set forth all their doctrines, only those analogous to Christianity. Krishna was a Vishnuite and not a Brahmin, as some writers assume. He and Christ were both reformers and departed from the ancient faith. Vishnuism appears to have finally centered in Buddhism. Okay, that is the end of that note and the end of the chapter. Finally, finally, finally. And we are now getting ready to start chapter 33, which is called Apollonius, Osiris, Magus, etc. Gods, miraculous achievements of other gods and demigods of antiquity. And we will begin that chapter tomorrow. And that will do it for today. Thanks for tuning in today. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and contribute. And we'll see you tomorrow for the next Bible Decode. Thanks for tuning in today. Have a great day.